Warning, this podcast typically features spoilers and strong opinions. Proceed with caution. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Then a Moment, the podcast where two lifelong storytellers talk about stories. I'm Pavi Proczko, audiobook narrator, author, actor, singer.
And I'm Colin Funk, a childhood development expert and teaching artist.
And today we're going to be talking about The Little Mermaid. A classic and a new classic now.
Yes, the new movie specifically. Just came out last weekend, but whenever you...
But still, whenever it
gets released.
But very recently, yes. So we'll see. But first, let's talk about our moments of the week.
Let's do it.
My moment of the week, we just finished Maisel. And I think, you have been warned about spoilers, just so you know. Just making that clear at the beginning of every episode. So at the end of the series, if you haven't seen it, sorry.
Oh, yes,
skip ahead a few seconds.
The season
but the series finale ends, and it was interesting. And you can watch our episode on Maisel when that comes out as well to get a little more insight into kind of how we feel about this last season. But the last moment I thought was really lovely, where it's Midge and Susie in their twilight years in 2005. They're old and they live on opposite continents, but they like tape Jeopardy and watch it together and they laugh. And it's like the last frames are them laughing together. And I just thought that was really very poignant. And I really loved that. That's my moment of the week.
It was really lovely.
Yeah,
I agree. I think I'll do my moment from that same episode.
Yeah.
Because it was, it was back and forth on relevance to the rest of the series. But really it allows Alex Borstein to just shine just one final time.
For real.
I think, there's two moments that she really, I'm deciding which one. That's why I'm. But she has two moments. One where she finally kind of talks Midge through, still at arm's length, but talks Midge through her relationship with Hetty.
Yeah.
And we finally get to see her kind of had feelings about this woman that she's had a relationship with in the past, and we're finally getting some confirmations about her sexuality question and things like that. But the whole time it's just Alex Borstein essentially monologuing about it, and it's just some of the best film acting I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's just like I every time they cut away to watch Midge's face, I was like, no. I want to go back. I don't need to see her. I don't need to see her reactions. It doesn't matter. I get it. I get this is about the relationship.
Every time she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, shut up. Just let her talk.
Yeah, seriously. But also even throughout Midge's time on the Gordon Ford show, so many spoilers. I'm sorry, everyone. So many spoilers. They do a lot in the last episode, which is great. But while Midge is on the Gordon Ford show, you see Susie go through just like every emotion possible.
Oh my God,
throughout
it's so good.
Like it is just like excitement, and then it's tanked, and then it's excitement again, but fear. But like, it's so good. And she doesn't even have to talk, and everything that's happening with her. It's perfect. She's great.
Yeah.
So
really, I think she's really solidified herself as like currently my favorite actor. I think she's just so good.
Yeah. I think with the buildup, especially of that scene, I think we were waiting for there to be a big break for Midge in her career. And I think they treated that scene really well.
Yeah.
They gave it a lot of time, and it was satisfying, I thought.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
Good moments.
Great.
Cool. So check those out. Ready to get to it?
Let's do it.
All right. The Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid.
Let's do our synopsis for those of us who have no idea about The Little Mermaid.
Yes.
Whoever you are living under a rock.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's a classic. I mean, now there's been specifically, there's a Disney cartoon, the Disney musical, now new movie.
Yeah.
So there's 3 different versions. You have no excuse at this point.
Yeah.
But synopsis. We follow Ariel, the Little Mermaid, who is one of Triton's 7 daughters, and decides she does not want the life of an under-the-sea princess, and she loves going to swim to the surface, collecting things and spying on humans. Of course, her dad doesn't like that, and so forbids it, and then she decides, screw it, I'm going to go to my aunt, who's a sea witch, and is going to turn me human, and it's going to be great. Of course, she puts a twist on it. She has to get Ursula. Ursula makes it so that Ariel has to get a kiss before the end of the 3rd day, and then she will stay human forever, but she loses her voice. And so with the help of Sebastian and Scuttle and Flounder, they try to get the prince to kiss her, but it doesn't happen because Ursula comes back and pretends to be another person using her voice.
Yep.
They have a big fight. It's too late. Ariel turns back into a human, or back into a mermaid, and they have to defeat Ursula ultimately. But then they do, and she lives happily ever after with Eric, we think.
Yes, that's presumably.
Yes. It's a Disney
And if
movie.
you've seen the sequel, you would know that it is the case.
Yes.
Cool.
Forgot about the sequel
Yeah,
and the
right?
series. There's so much.
And the series, there's so many things. Good. What did you know about The Little Mermaid? You know, we've seen it, but like, what else
Obviously.
is there? You know, have you seen the sequel and the series?
Oh yes.
And I know I'm like minorly familiar with the old fairy tale.
Oh sure, yeah.
That is a lot darker than
Hans Christian Erikson.
the Hans Christian Andersen
Erikson.
fairy tale, The Little Mermaid, and it's like a very classic, like very Slavic fairy tale.
Scandinavian.
Yeah, it's very Scandinavian, and I know like with Ukrainian heritage stuff. Like when I was in school, we would read about different Little Mermaid stories like that. That was pretty common.
Right.
And there's a
dark.
Dvorak opera. Rusalka is that, and that's like what mermaid is in all the Slavic languages, basically. But yeah, that's basically The Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
And they all have kind of like different tracks, but they all kind of revolve around mermaid's powers. So a voice, kind of a siren song,
Right.
and wanting to be human, and or trying to like doing hypnotizing the humans, like attracting the humans with the song,
Yeah.
and falling in love, and you know, kind of that forbidden love across worlds thing.
Yes.
Common theme. So, what did you think of the new movie?
I mean, generally, I loved it. I think The Little Mermaid is one of, if not my favorite, of the Disney princess movies, just in general. And I, you know, in that case, like, you always wonder, like, are they going to do it service? Is it going to be as good? Is it going to be better? Is it just going to be different? And I think, similarly to how we thought about Dungeons and Dragons, I think they do a good job at, giving the fans little pieces that they loved from the original movie.
Yeah,
they sprinkle it out, but changing things, not so terribly that it like distracts you. They're updating a couple things. They're adjusting some of the messages here and there. But overall, they kept it pretty intact. And I would say, in contrast to, say, like the Mulan remake.
Right.
I haven't seen very many of the.
Yeah, I haven't seen
remakes.
Other than those. Those are the only two I've seen: Mulan and Little Mermaid. And Mulan was not great. Really horrible changes.
Yeah.
while Little Mermaid
was a
didn't do
disappointment
that.
because I love Mulan too.
Right.
And it did not do the same thing.
Yeah, agreed. So what kinds of things were kind of the homages? What kinds of things did they bring back in?
I mean, there was a lot of like images. They just was it like frame for frame?
Yeah.
They did some like frame for frame remakes, like the using Flotsam and Jetsam and their eyes and their eyes coming together to see the image of a swimming mermaid.
Yes.
There's like something so iconic. They take those images, things like Ariel on the rock, like pushing herself up with the waves crashing behind her.
Or when she emerges, when she's finally human, she like the transformation is complete, and she like flips her hair up. I remember doing that as a kid in the pool, being the mermaid, flipping your hair up.
It's so iconic.
It is. It's really like stunning imagery.
I mean, just Ursula putting her makeup on and like the close-ups of her and the little sea creatures.
Yes.
Every time that happened, I was like, yes, this is it.
And even just Ursula being upside down, like that that image of Ursula upside down and just like lounging. Oh, it's excellent. It's pretty good. And then her reaching, like she's singing "Part of Your World" and reaching through that hole.
Reaching through the hole in her grotto.
Oh yeah, from her grotto. It's really they did a really nice service to that. And what did you think of Halle Bailey? Halle Bailey. What did you think of Halle Bailey as Ariel?
I thought she was excellent. I mean, I thought her voice, it's nice that they hired a real singer because I know a lot of the live actions, they're looking for a name and sometimes they don't sing or they don't sing well and there's a lot of auto-tune. So they didn't do that. Of course, they used Halle, I'm sure, because her voice is more contemporary, but I didn't feel like it was distractingly so. I feel like they really there's those iconic videos. I don't know if it's like a niche thing or like just something that musical theater people or even specifically Milliken people, because side note,
sure.
Before this movie, Milliken, my alma mater, Milliken had both Jodie Benson and Sierra Boggess. So Jodie Benson, who played Ariel in the movie, in the original cartoon, and then Sierra Boggess, who played Ariel in the original Broadway. And they both went to Milliken. And so Milliken usually claims they claim the mermaids. And so I don't know if this was just like, we love it. But there was like a video on YouTube of Jodie Benson singing "Part of Your World," and was it Alan Menken?
With Alan Menken,
Alan Menken stopping her and being like, "Stop singing like that. Don't sing like Ethel Merman. Like this is a monologue. It's a monologue in song. Sing less. Sing less. Sing less. Sing less."
Yeah, because it's interesting when you listen to. I rewatched the cartoon to kind of get to refresh our memory about it.
Yeah.
And when you listen to Jodie Benson, I never realized the breadth of Jodie Benson's work too until relatively recently when we stumbled upon videos of her in Chess, and she's like unreal.
Niche musical theater videos. So.
Yeah, niche musical theater videos of her live singing, someone else's story.
Oh my
and
God.
It's incredible. And Nobody's on Nobody's Side.
Oh yeah.
I mean, she's so good, and it's just like I just never thought that she was like a big belter.
No,
but she is like hard.
Oh, she's good.
She's like a rock singer. She's really good.
Excellent.
But for Ariel, she's like does the princess voice, and she does it really, really well. And that just like how much in that video with Alan Menken it like takes to like have him like beat it out of her to be like, no, stop doing that thing that you're really, really good at and everybody knows you for on the Broadway circuit. You need to stop that because this is different.
I think that speaks volumes to how well loved and how iconic and it and lasting that original Part of Your World, that version. I mean, I sang it maybe a million times.
It's really satisfying.
One of the best.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the best Disney songs, one of the best like musical theater I want songs.
Yeah.
It's so
good and
excellent.
And it's interesting because in the original cartoon, they don't ever do any of like the up options that,
Yes,
that
the
you now
optioning
see
up.
on Broadway, and
Yes.
in the movie they use it a little bit
yeah,
too.
they do.
And it's a little beltier now. Like we tolerate that now because we did hear it on Broadway,
Yes.
and it's actually very exciting when it is. It's great.
Right. And I feel like even back then, the difference between a belt voice and a kind of a soprano, even a mix, was such a high contrast.
Yeah.
And now the belts can be kind of a lighter Disney princess
Right.
version of a belt,
Right.
which is like the vocal techniques have improved since then.
Right. Yeah. So we can actually kind of bridge the gap there that would have normally been much wider.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought she was pretty great too. I liked Halle Bailey. I'm like Halle Berry, Haley Bailey, Halle Bailey. I thought she was great. I thought she was really
great.
excellent. Really great singing.
Great singing.
Yeah.
And great acting. I mean, really no complaints. I thought was really excellent. And, you know, as the first one not to come from Milliken, I was judging pretty hard. Like there was like on the forums, on the Facebook groups and stuff, people were like, should we just give Halle Bailey an honorary degree at Milliken? We got to hold on to this, but I hope so. I hope they do.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So what, let's get more into the weeds here, specifically about like kind of what the movie does versus this new movie does versus the cartoon, because I think there's some interesting things here to parse out.
Yes. Okay. So I have an idea.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start, I'm going to name some changes, at least that I observed between the old one and the new one.
Okay.
And we can compare them. You can pick your favorite or your which one you think works better, or if they are just different.
Sure, let's do it.
All right. So, Sebastian was a composer / conductor.
Yes.
In the original, and he was an advisor. Unclear. Maybe he said it specifically.
Yeah.
But I think he was one of the king's advisors, if not the king's advisor.
Right.
What do you think about that change?
It was fine. It worked fine. It gave some justification for some things, but I don't like it. I much prefer the composer. And if only because our introduction to Triton and the sisters was the cartoon clips, man, it's got such a good pace, and the way they weave into each other, I was like, oh, this is good. And this new movie really throws in a lot of story to justify some things that we don't really need justified.
Yes.
I'm sure some of that we'll get to also in your list, but in this case, I think the most egregious thing is that in Under the Sea, none of the sea creatures are playing instruments.
Oh my gosh.
And there's lyrics about them playing the instruments because he's a composer and he's supposed to do it. And I'm like, oh my God.
So let's, this is a big change just generally. The use of background vocals in general, and the use of, and the tamped down use of the sea creatures as actual characters.
Yeah.
So the only sea creature characters other than the mermaids, and a lot less mermaids.
Yeah.
Sebastian, Flounder.
Yeah.
And Scuttle, you can say.
Yeah.
But sea creature, I mean, they changed Scuttle from a seagull to a...
what is it?
I looked this up too. I'm going to look it up right now.
Yeah.
Gannet. Scuttle is no longer a seagull and no longer a boy, but a girl gannet.
Gannet. Yeah.
Which is a seabird, and they chose it specifically because it can last a long time underwater.
Interesting.
That was the...
Yeah, I have notes about that.
Yes.
Sure.
But just in general, the change from this lively sea creature under the sea world where they have like a lot of personality and they sing background vocals, and we see very clear human faces on these sea creatures, to
kind of this,
there's like 3 CGI animals that have like the very, very minimal human expression added to them. And I'm sure for different reasons.
Sure.
Thoughts?
It's a little disappointing to kind of, you like lose the expression of those creatures. And it's like, I'm sure it's very difficult, which is why they're like, well, we're just going to do Flounder because he's famous enough, and we got to do those other two because they're like really important in the plot. But like everybody else, we're just not going to do it. And we're just going to have tortoises dance because that's a lot easier than making them have personalities, especially when you're billing this as a kind of a live action thing.
Yes.
You can't give them human expression because they have to look like real animals,
which is
really hard.
It's hard to be on that line between like this looks real, but also a little bit cartoony, but we don't want to get too close to the uncanny valley.
Yeah, the uncanny valley. It makes me really worried about the Lion King remake. I didn't see it.
You don't have to be worried. It's already happened.
I'm just worried about not. I didn't think about it, but I'm like, I'm gonna see it and be like, oh man, that's how they did the wild animals, and it's just not gonna. It's not gonna do the thing.
I'm not that interested because of that.
Me neither.
I never really was. But also like Flotsam and Jetsam are part of that.
Yes,
had no
and
voice.
That no voice, and that was so strange that you should have just gotten rid of the rest, I guess, or it wasn't. But that wouldn't work because so much of like the second and third acts of the story are really like kind of Sebastian's story. Like he's the one that's kind of like driving so much of the action, so you can't actually get rid of it unless you just transform everything.
Yeah, I mean they really took away a lot of Flounder stuff too.
Yeah,
I feel like Flounder was very involved in the original, and Flounder was not so involved in this movie. Yeah, and I wonder why that is.
Because it's hard, I'm sure. So that is like a little bit disappointing because it's what makes the cartoon so good.
Yes. Well, and it to me too, it really fleshes out the worlds. Mm-hmm. Like this is a real thriving community.
Yeah.
And we see it's like very humanized. We're supposed to see this as like this bright, rich home that she's leaving.
Yeah.
And no, it looked fun and beautiful, but there's something missing
no
about
people.
Yeah,
there's no people there.
Empty.
Yeah.
Which like, maybe they did that on purpose. Maybe they were like, yeah, she's lonely.
Yeah. Her sisters in this new movie, her sisters don't live in the palace. They live all over the world and they just come back once a year. Mm-hmm. So she's all alone. This is like her domain, I guess.
Yeah.
With Triton, and then everybody else just kind of like scatters. So maybe it is just like kind of a sparse world. I don't know if that's a stronger choice. I think I prefer it to be kind of.
Well, I guess like in the end, I think they didn't quite fully make that choice.
Yeah.
Because in the end, they brought back 100 mermaids that we've never seen before.
Right at the end. Yeah.
And I'm like, where do these guys come from?
I know.
And they're just like hanging out there at the end, which I think I understand. I understand that choice. And I guess I'll take that as a logic point to the next difference. I guess as I interpreted, and feel free to tell me if you disagree, they made the conflict, at least from the perspective of King Triton, between the human and the mermaid world.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more vague, a little bit like kind of more black and white, like it's forbidden, like it feels like kind of like an ancient, like we don't do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it is, the thing that keeps coming up is that there are these fish eaters. Like that is like the phrase he brings up multiple times. These like fish eating humans. Like that's the big sin.
Yeah.
And then in a movie, we make a shift because I think it's it's a very clear shift. Like the conflict is humans are bad to the ocean. Mm-hmm. They're destroying it. They make a bigger point about cultures not getting along with each other, and humans, it feels like just generally an environmental message, and not about humans just eating fish. Like that's not the, it's bigger. It's more I mean, like they made it very clear in this new movie that the humans killed Ariel's mother.
Yeah.
And they bring it up over and over. They have the sisters digging through the trash of the shipwrecks.
Yeah.
And this is one of the moments I think that they over-explain. When King Triton is telling Ariel that she cannot go up to the surface, he gives lots of very clear reasons that he doesn't give in the old one.
Yeah, and it's kind of to the movie's detriment a little bit. It's
Absolutely.
So much is over-explained because it's not even it's like it's part and parcel with the rest of the kind of backstory they keep adding in. They're adding in that it's Ariel's mother died. Ariel has mermaid powers, and then she's giving up these powers. And then there's also Prince Eric has a past, and he's adopted, and he was found by a shipwreck, and I just don't know why they had to do all of it. And it seems like in the case of Eric, they cast a black woman as his mother, as the queen.
Yes.
And so they now have to justify that he's adopted, maybe, instead of just going like the Cinderella route and just being like, don't talk about it. It doesn't matter. And then the idea that he is like somehow, in his soul, not cut out to, or he's just like doesn't want to be royal. There's like something essentialist about it. And,
but can we just pause right there?
Sure.
Because we're getting a little too far off of what the original thing. So, because I'll hit that point in just a second.
Like the mythology of the mer people versus the humans, like what the conflict is in there.
Especially in King Triton saying, this is why you can't.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, that's where we see it kind of like most poignantly.
Yeah, I guess I didn't catch so strongly that that they're like just mad about them eating fish, because a lot of people eat fish. A lot of other fish eat fish. I mean, we see, of course, the shark is a bad guy. It's like the first villain that we see.
Right.
Fish eater. And they're fish eaters
Ursula
too.
eating sea creatures, and so that she's painted as a villain.
Yeah. It seemed a little more, I don't know. It does. It seemed like a little more ancient. It seems like there's that unspoken, like, where is her mother? Well, we're not going to find out, but it's like, it's probably involved. And something about like naming it makes it overly complicated, or it's like about like the audiences are stupid and they need to be told every single thing.
Right. But even in that case, the point that King Triton like doesn't have a very clear reason, or an old outdated reason, where like we see it's very simple.
Yeah.
Like he just keeps using the phrase, these fish eating people, these people who will eat
it's just the way it is.
And then we see humans, like their whole Les Poissons, the whole song is like,
it's like,
I think it's meant to be like, this is like,
it's actually real.
Is how scary it looks.
Yeah.
But even in the end of the movie, like they don't make any effort they don't care about that change in the end.
Yeah.
In the original.
Right.
Which I thought was odd if it was so important, but also kind of highlights that it wasn't that important. It wasn't that deeply thought through.
It was right. It was actually just deep-seated prejudices as opposed to anything that's actually founded. Because there's almost like, it's dangerous. Your mother was killed by these people very recently.
Yeah, I thought
we're not going anywhere near there. That's the thing that I'm like
in the
be
movie,
so forgiving at the end is just like, why did he do that? Well, how could you forgive that so easily without like addressing this? Whereas in the cartoon, it's much more like, oh, it's just the way it is. And then when you're like, oh, I have to actually rethink the way it is because I didn't really think it through.
I mean, even in the new movie, I think it gave like, it's harder for me to believe that humans killing her mother doesn't give her more pause.
Yeah. Doesn't give her more pause. Like she has proof in there. Whereas if she's just hearing the same people, like, that's not how it is. This is what we do. This is what we do. Then she's gonna be like, but why? You're not giving me a reason why.
Exactly.
And it gives a lot more kind of oomph behind her rebellion to it.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, I think part of the message in the original feels like if you are refusing to give the information, if you are refusing to have the full conversation, you are doing more damage than good.
Yeah.
You are actually pushing people away instead of giving them the tools to critically think for themselves.
Right.
And maybe there's just a difference in the world because now we have all the information and more generally at our fingertips.
Yeah.
And that kids are still making decisions that parents don't want them to, I suppose. And I'm sure that's part of it, but it felt a little
it's a little forced.
Incomplete.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, I agree.
Not terribly, but I do. Yeah, it felt a little forced.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and we can move to the prince and that he was adopted this time.
Yeah,
and
he was adopted.
Before.
He wasn't before. We didn't see his parents at all.
I guess
before.
yes. So that's the whole prince, where before a little two-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
He at the beginning they're like, you need to settle down. He's like, sure. When the right girl comes around, there's not a lot of conflict on his side.
Yeah.
There's no parents. He just kind of like goes with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
And in the new one, they gave him conflict. They gave him conflict that parallels Ariel's conflict.
Mm-hmm.
In that his parents want XYZ. They are overly cautious.
Yeah.
They're trying to kind of like force him into a bubble, but he has bigger and better ideas.
Yeah.
And is also adopted.
Yeah. The bigger, better ideas, I liked that. I liked the parallels with
Yes.
Ariel. I thought that worked really well.
I thought so too.
But then once it was him being adopted, we get into like a weird territory now. It just didn't seem relevant or necessary. Like none of it was needed.
So.
And they used it as a justification for him to be like, but I'm not really royalty. There's like an unspoken like, but at my core, I'm not royalty. And therefore I have this deep-seated essentialist drive to go out and adventure and not be in the castle. When it's like,
but
you could have been that way.
Ariel is not that way.
Right. Ariel does that. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Ariel shows you that it does not have to be like that for those feelings to exist.
Right. Right.
You can be part of the royal family and you're supposed to but you have the calls to do other things.
Yeah. And maybe it was just a way to, mollify more complaints, because there were plenty of complaints about Halle Bailey being,
God, so stupid.
A mermaid of color. Mermaid.
Yeah, because
mermaids.
green was fine.
Yeah,
but
right. Ugh. And
that is a silly. I mean, like, to address that, like, how there's so much controversy about it, and
maybe to allay the controversy about being like, well, how could he be the queen's son if he's white and she's black? And so then they're like, well, he's adopted.
A fairy tale. I mean, we look at the Brandy Cinderella.
The Brandy Cinderella is good.
A thing.
Not a thing. They didn't have to.
Loved it.
It didn't matter.
I'm sure some people got in a hissy fit about it, but like, in the end, it's a fairy tale.
Well,
Who cares?
Maybe that's part of the detriment of trying to make all of your motivations so realistic, because now suddenly you have to do everything realistic. You can't give the fish real like human faces. You can't just accept some of the magic in it, because you have to be like, well, I have to justify why he woke up. He woke up from drowning because she used her superpowers as a mermaid to wake him up. I was like, is that what mermaid siren songs do? That's not really a thing. And it wasn't even need to be that. It doesn't need to be that. It's like, it's fine. I don't know.
There's a lot of little changes that like you could easily lift any conversation about him being adopted out of it, and it wouldn't change anything.
No.
Not story wise. It feels just to get around some maybe questions.
Yeah.
Some maybe questions.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Otherwise, like I do really like the way they changed the motivator for him.
Yeah. I do too.
I noted very, very specifically the difference. We won't talk too much about the Broadway musical, but the musical has a whole bunch of songs in it that aren't in the original movie, nor did they keep any of them for the new movie, which was a little disappointing. But in this case, personally, I see like in the musical, they gave him a song called Her Voice.
Her Voice. Yeah.
And it is like his conflict becomes very solely like, do I stick with the person in front of me, or do I look for like the dream?
Right.
That is, which is, still present in all versions.
Right.
There is, I think that's a very strong.
And the irony being that for most of it, it's the same person.
That's brilliant. I
think
it's
really
that's like,
good. It's a really good device.
That's one of the most brilliant things about, I think, the story in general.
Yeah.
Is like you see this person struggling with a conflict that is not even real.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're just like, it's
just look, it's
They're the
right
same
there.
person.
Yeah.
Which I think is very, very interesting. So having a song about it obviously makes sense.
Yeah.
But it really then makes his character all about her and finding the girl either way, and not having his own kind of motivations beyond that.
Right.
And if that's, the story's about the Little Mermaid, that character can be more two-dimensional. That's okay.
kind of where I kind of land on that. We're like, we don't need Eric to be that much.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that, but I do think changing it and having his song in the new movie, Uncharted Waters, something like that, where he's like, this person is exciting me about my dream. Like I'm not distracted. This is not the only thing, but like it is this.
It lines up with his instinct to break out of the monotony of life.
Right. Yeah. Right. The song is him saying, whoever this person that saved me, like lit that flame, like really fueled the flame for me to go into uncharted waters. To explore, to do new things.
I think it kind of parallels a little bit. I mean, very much. It parallels Ariel's desire to leave the ocean. So one thing I do want to ask here. So there's some criticism about a lot of Disney princesses, and like, it's like being very glib about like, the Beauty and the Beast is a story of hostage situation and
Stockholm syndrome.
Right? Yeah. And like in Little Mermaid is like, oh, you have to change everything about yourself in order to find the man you love. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious what you think about that argument after this recent viewing of both of the films.
I think it is reductive generally, that just the inclusion of also having a love interest means that Ariel didn't have any desires outside of a man.
Yeah.
Like she wanted to live on the human world. Part of that world wasn't like, I want to be with that man. That she never mentions a boy at all. She never mentions.
She hasn't met him yet.
She's just talking about wanting to explore this new, like there's new exciting things. She wants more for her life generally.
Yeah.
And of course, like it would make sense if she finds a man that would let her do that.
Right.
And of course, like that happens all the time. We use romance in like most superhero movies. You want to see their personal life. That's how we humanize them.
Yeah. I mean, it's the easiest way to get into stakes. People fall in love. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And,
and of course, like teenagers make silly decisions about people they fall in love with, and I see where people are coming from, and if that's the only story that they're ingesting, then that would make sense.
Yeah.
But that's not... Yes, I mean, she didn't just give all those things up for the man. Ursula took advantage of the fact that she had a thing for him, and she took advantage of that. That's not Ariel just like...
Right.
trying to give everything up for a man. It's Ursula seeing her getting interested in the man and being like, I'm going to take advantage of these strong feelings that this teenager is having.
Right.
And especially in this movie, in the new version, I actually think they did a really good job of showing how hard it was and how many times she is like how much she's doubting that decision and how difficult every step of it is. And like, it's not like in the original, she's like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. This is so exciting. In the musical, she has a whole song about being like, she's so excited to see the human things up close.
Yeah.
And in this new one, there's like, she's like, I don't know what I'm...
Yeah, she's like in over her head
now, and I'm freaking out. It's exciting, but it's like...
But I'm also completely unbalanced,
and then, like, all of a sudden, he just shuts me down, and I'm like, did I just make a choice that I can never reverse? This is terrible. It's not just, oh no, will I get to stay a human? It's, oh no, will I be stuck as a human? Like, there's like a little bit of that added in the new movie that I thought was really... poignant. I thought that was very interesting. And I think it helps, I don't know, at least for me, to be like, it's not just about like, there's a lot of regret around that too. It's not just about the man. I don't know. I
always got the sense that Ariel would have chosen to become a human whether Eric was involved or not.
Absolutely. She wanted to.
Yeah. So if Ursula was just like, here, be a human, you'd be like, okay, let's do it. And
I think so.
It's your last chance. You're going to be stuck under the sea forever. And that's the clincher. It's not even just like, oh, but you'll never see Eric. And they do hammer that home in the cartoon a little more. But the only thing is that like the catch of the spell is the kiss. That's the catch, right?
Yes. I wanted to talk about that difference too. The spell and its, the spell has a different catch really in both movies.
Yeah.
The first one, like you said, the kiss is the catch along with losing the voice. Those are the catches.
Right.
That's the thing that she's like, you have to get him to kiss you.
But you have no voice.
But that's the thing. That's the twist. That's the trick.
Right.
You don't have a voice. In the movie, they make it very specifically, it's not a payment. Mm-hmm. Don't quite get the decision there. It's just, you're like, it's not fair if you get to use your siren song. So it's like, it's already like more than just like, you don't get to use your voice to convince him to kiss you. But I think the original movie, I'll get to it in a second. Okay. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay.
In the new movie, and the twist is not only that she can't use her voice, but also Ursula sneaks in that she also does not remember she needs to be kissed. I also don't understand that.
I don't get it. I hated that. I thought it was stupid.
Why? Because what that does for me, I'll let you talk about your feelings too.
Yeah.
But
what does it do for you?
What that does for me is telling me that we won't believe that she can't just go and get a kiss from him and that she'll just like jump all over him unless we stop her.
Yeah. That's exactly what it feels like to me. Yeah.
The original one, there is an excitement and like, she's not just like trying to like get him to kiss her. She is enjoying her time.
Right.
She is also getting distracted from the kiss.
Right.
And I think that's part of the like that is part of the whole message. Like Ursula is the one trying to force this, like, do this for a man. She's the villain.
Right.
But in the, like, and there again, a difference in Poor Unfortunate Souls has a whole bit about
body
language.
On,
you have your looks, you can use your body.
Yeah.
Men don't like when women talk.
Yeah.
It's trying to feed her all of these things.
Right.
And she doesn't take the bait.
Yeah.
She doesn't like just try to like seduce him.
Right.
She she just enjoys the company of Eric and the world around her.
Yeah.
She's not this like body obsessed and sex obsessed teenager trying to like get with the man. That's not what it is.
Right.
And and I think they try to use not remembering the kiss as a way to avoid that in the new movie. And they cut out anything about using her body and anything about men being kind of misogynist at all from Poor Unfortunate Souls, to just like not even deal with that and just say like, I don't know. It just like does it in a way that I'm like, well, don't you want it to come from Ariel?
Right.
Like that's how I see it. Is we don't allow the motivations to come from Ariel herself. It now is forced.
It's forced onto her, and it really kind of locks in. I mentioned it a little bit, but that middle part of the middle build of the film, the new one, is all Sebastian. Like, it's all Sebastian and Scuttle trying to figure out how to get this kiss to happen.
Yeah.
Because Ariel is actually does not have any agency if she cannot remember.
Yeah.
She cannot remember that's the thing she's supposed to do. But that's also assuming that, like, just because she knows she can do it, as you were saying, that's all she would do, or that it wouldn't even be appropriate to do it.
Exactly.
Because think about the time frame that we're talking about here. We're
Which
in
is what? Who knows?
Well, who knows? But like
fantasy time period.
They certainly did. They certainly did a lot of work to make other things realistic. And they've talked about, in the new movie, they're not in Europe. They're somewhere in the Caribbean, I'm imagining. And
it's kind of like
and they're like
a mix, I think.
Yeah,
it's just generally island nation.
Yes, and they're like, we're going to fall behind unless we get the stuff from Europe. There's like a whole conversation about like wanting to go out and enrich the kingdom.
Yeah.
And
the cultures, like
the cultures,
it is important to connect with other cultures, and if we don't, we will be left behind.
Right, and
that is important. And in the new movie,
right.
That is,
and so it's like we're lending this reality to it. So let's just go a little further. They're obviously in some, I don't know, like Victorian or pre-Victorian era, something. In the pirate times, right? Because there's like they talk about the galleons of, the Spanish are there and the English are there and whatever. But would people just kiss even if they were in love? Like, is that just like a thing that you would do? Like royalty wouldn't, right? Royalty wouldn't do that. Like there's
decorum.
Right, exactly. There's some decorum you have to kind of take into account, and so you don't need the added crutch. It's a storytelling crutch. It just didn't.
Yeah.
It just really cheapened her struggle there because it's not her fault. She's just, and there's no way out of it.
No, it was weird.
Yeah, it was really weird.
I don't know. And I think it also takes more away from Ursula. Like
everything was above board in the cartoon.
Yeah, exactly.
She'd never said that she couldn't send Flotsam and Jetsam up there to stop it. She has agents on the outside too, but she played by the rules. She made an agreement. She did. Well, there's like a secret clause? She wants it to be legally
binding.
Right.
She like has her sign in blood.
Right.
And she wants to take it to her father, be like, this is legit. You can't do anything about this.
And if you have like this weird secret clause, there's only like blow it out of the water and like magic rules, I'm imagining. You know, it's just like you need some limitation to magic when you have any magic in any story. And we're probably going to talk about this ad nauseum in future episodes when we run into magic systems and stuff. But you need to have those limitations.
Yeah.
That they need to follow their own rules.
This one kind of took it too far.
Yeah, took it too far.
Magic too far. Very little magic in the movie.
Yeah, and it took it too far. Yeah, that you could just like do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And for as you say, a reason I'm not sure why, just to avoid talk about bodies or
maybe
sex or anything. And to be fair, rewatching the cartoon, I mean that animation is like excellent. It's so good, and the whole scene with Ursula in Poor Unfortunate Souls, the whole way through is like creepy, and just even her like doing like the, don't forget about body language, and she's got this big butt and she's doing the body rolls and
it's defined too.
Oh man, and like
butt
her
cheeks.
just like the doing the makeup and her smile and
that's why people are mad and scared of drag queens, because they're saying drag queens are always sexualizing everything because Ursula was a drag queen sexualizing it all.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what people see.
Maybe, yeah. And she's, she is notably the villain.
But that's the villain. And I think
it's so good. And I just wonder, what we lose when we like eliminate those things.
Yeah.
Because it was very important. And it's not like I was over sexualized as a child when I saw it. I didn't catch most of it. I didn't catch any of it as a sexual thing. But like as an adult watching, I'm like, oh my God, look at this. Looking back at that story now as an adult, or as an adult then watching kids watch it, it's like what an important lesson they're going to kind of, it'll come together in their minds when they're adults. It's going to actually form into something. They'll be like, oh my gosh, I never realized it until now I know a little bit more about the world. But Ursula was like a crazy over-sexualizing, horrible witch.
Yeah.
And she wasn't just bad because she stole her voice and tried to steal Eric. She was bad because she was trying to convince Ariel that the only thing she was good for was her body. Yeah. That was the tack that she was going to have to take.
Yes.
That's what makes her a villain. And to be able to learn that as an adult by looking back at the stuff that you loved as a kid is so valuable. And so when you like don't have that in this new one, Melissa McCarthy is excellent.
I think
as
Melissa McCarthy
Ursula
is awesome.
But it is
I was very skeptical.
The whole movie is just devoid of sexuality, completely gone. It's all just sucked out of it.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
There is, I don't know if it's devoid completely, but it is mostly, I don't know, there are a couple scenes where like they get close and I'm like, oh, they're real people.
Yeah.
Like there is something about that
There's
I'm
something
like,
about like
and I
real
think,
humans.
Like, I think you do have to tone it down between cartoon and live action, because like once like you start getting like closer on the boat and you're like,
it's like, oh, they're real people. Are they really going to kiss? I mean, even thinking about that with when in the cartoon, when Ariel turns into the human for the first time and she's like getting up out of the ocean and all she has is her clam bra. And it's like,
she doesn't have clams in the new movie.
No.
So she's just naked.
She's just naked, but we don't even see as much there. Like she's just kind of like sitting there,
Right. And I think they were very, very
conservative about it. While in the cartoon, she's like trying to get up and her hair is covering the bits and pieces. And if it were real, you would need to be a little more careful because it would be just like edging on PG-13, Right. And they do. I
think they do okay just generally with that. But I don't think they need to like, especially out of Ursula, I don't think they needed to completely suck it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Because as the villain, it's just the example of kind of what not to do.
Yeah, and I think we miss that a lot. I think that there's a trend that we want to cut out things that we kind of disagree with generally.
Yeah.
Instead of letting villains be bad people with bad ideas and bad thoughts, and then we can see some reality in the world and
see people overcome it.
We can actually learn things from that.
Yeah.
We can actually say like, we disagree with that.
Right. And we can see why that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Melissa McCarthy as
Yes.
Ursula, real quick, any other casting choices that you liked?
Oh,
or
I liked
disliked?
Awkwafina as Scuttle.
I loved Awkwafina.
I like her.
I do too.
I don't love, I think, the convention, the added mythology that she's never been to the surface before. And so Scuttle just like dips down under the water because Scuttle's this new bird now that can do that for a while. Mm-hmm. And so they did that to justify the fact that she's never actually been to the surface. So her first time to the surface is
the boat?
when she's
The fireworks.
When she goes to see the fireworks. And I just thought it was so much that it just makes it clunky. In the cartoon, it's so seamless that she's been going up. So then when he's like, wait, Seagull, you've been up on the surface again.
Yeah.
You know what I told you. You don't do that. And it's just so much more realistic to me.
I just don't know why she would have any connection with humans at all.
Right.
If she hadn't experienced
Other
them.
than just being like, look at this cool stuff that fell down on the ground. But
Is that
like
it?
That's it. But that's the whole thing with Scuttle is that she can go up and be like, what is this cool thing I found? And Scuttle can be like, oh, it's this. Oh,
Yeah,
it's this thing.
I
I've seen them
I
from
think
a
I just
distance.
generally
Isn't that
like
cool?
that.
And she's like, I've never been this close to a human before, which means she's seen one from a distance.
Yeah.
And I just think I like that better. I think
do
it
too.
makes more sense. There's just would be so many more implications, I think, if she had never been to the surface. Like, does she even know she can breathe above water? You know, like there's like so many
Yeah.
things. Like, am I just going to be poisoned when I get up there? Is someone waiting for me to show up and they're going to
Can
stab
she
me?
breathe out of the water? Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming so.
I mean,
They all
or is
do, so.
Yeah, for a little bit, but like
Yeah, who knows? Maybe
also
there's
Scuttle
an
hung out
expiration.
underwater for like 15 minutes. So.
Right. Yeah.
So any other casting choices that you?
Who else was there?
Daveed Diggs.
Daveed Diggs was fine. I
Yeah.
mean, the original Sebastian is just like,
But also Titus.
so good, and Titus, yeah, Titus it was
In the musical,
Titus Burgess in the musical. It's so good,
I mean, especially vocally, is the best. I mean,
and
I
think
love Titus.
Something that is.
But Daveed did fine.
Daveed did fine. I think something that was missing a little bit. I didn't, and probably because of the, anthropomorphic. I don't remember. Anthropomorphic. The non-anthropomorphicness of these creatures, right? That they're not quite human enough. You don't quite get that sense of care from Sebastian. And I don't know if it's David's fault necessarily.
No.
There is something a little bit kind of flat about his voice, but I reserve judgment just because I'm not sure we would be able to get it to do it with that kind of animation.
It's not even just his voice specifically, but the flatness of all the music because there's no background vocals in anything.
Yeah.
I think that makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In Under the Sea, even, I mean, I thought Kiss the Girl was a very cute way to like slim it down and just have the three of them sing it together.
Yeah, very cute.
Very, very cute.
I guess I'm thinking more even just like there's moments of care both in the musical where he's like, I would really love for you to I want to make your dreams come true. Like he is a real
Yes,
parent
they really fleshed him
figure.
out in the musical.
And in the cartoon, he's really, there's like that scene where he's like, okay, we got to get a plan to get you to kiss the prince. And then she kind of like falls asleep after this long day, her first day being human. And he tucks
He's
her
so
in
and
he's like, oh, you're just useless without me. And he's just so happy to be that, mentor figure, this parent figure with her.
I noted though too that in the original, he watches part of that world. He's there the whole song.
Yeah.
He doesn't get there until after in the new one.
Right.
He sees her swimming up to the surface. He's like, what is she doing?
Right. And
Like,
in
so-
this, he actually sees her declare her wants. He knows her deepest desire because he was there.
He was there.
Yeah.
And then he saw the deep desires and the things. Then he sees, like, he accidentally spills the beans.
Yeah.
He feels bad.
He doesn't want to
apologizes.
tell. He does. He apologizes. I did not mean to tell.
That's how
I didn't.
Ariel gets him to like go, like not go back and tell the father because like when she's like, I'm going to Ursula. Why don't you go tell Dad? You're good at that.
Oh, it's such a good line. It's such a good dig.
Oh.
Yeah. Why don't you go tell him you're good for? Yeah. Oh man. And it's really good. And he feels awful. And he is in contrast to her dad. It was a little bit by accident. other than the fact that he was actually just there with her, which her dad doesn't do. But Triton is not present, doesn't know these things, and so can't behave in the ways that honor those things, whereas Sebastian actually does have all that information, whether by order or accident. But he does have that information, and it actually influences how he behaves with her.
Yeah.
I think it's a really sweet element to the cartoon.
Yeah.
That is a little bit missing in the new one.
A little bit missing, right? Because they're trying to flesh out other things, and I think they ignore some of that. Some of the character and the relationship building is not quite as strong.
Yeah,
and even just like Ursula and Flotsam and Jetsam, just because they can't talk, it's like
I don't care, and I'm not sure why you care. We'll get to that, I'm sure. So that's my moment for later. But yeah, I had another point about that. It's like instead of fleshing out these relationships and having kind of these realistic give and take of kind of inputs and outputs of information and actions, you have now, it seems like in TV and in film and in books, there's like this trend toward making sure that your protagonist is involved in every single thing that happens. They have to be the one that does every single thing that is important in this story. And I get why. Like, we have this tendency with some of our Disney movies, especially where it's just like, oh, stuff just happens to them.
Right, and especially Disney princesses, and that's been a criticism too of Disney princesses, that there's not a ton of agency. And there's a couple moments at the end that I want to quick talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Point.
Yeah, and I think we kind of do a bit of a disservice here in making sure that Ariel is the one to rip the necklace off of Ursula when she's in her beautiful state, that she's the one to be on the ship and turn
that's what I was talking
the
about.
ship into Ursula. Those moments where she's like, she's the one to do it, is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay,
but it gives short shrift to the stuff that happens to people. It gives short shrift to the relationships that she builds and the friends that she has and the importance of those people in her life. It gives short shrift to the agency of those other people. So, she's the one that commits to the climax of the story. But what is the climax of the story here? And it might be like a little bit of a misunderstanding of what exactly constitutes climax. Because I think generally like a protagonist needs to own that, right? Something happens to the protagonist at the beginning, and the climax of this film, kind of story-wise in my thinking, is the moment where kind of everything about that they address finally, knowing everything that they need to know. Oh, this is actually everything that's happening. We have the inciting incident. She's become a human now, right? She's like decides to go do this thing. I'm gonna go be a human after Ursula comes and tells me like she's gonna give me these powers. I go say yes. All this stuff happens. We get this crisis where it's like, oh, actually Ursula's that beautiful lady now over there, and she's gonna marry Eric. There's a huge crisis, and we know it's a crisis. We know all of the stakes because we just watched most of the movie, right?
Yes.
We know what's at stake here.
Yes.
And we know the risk. It's Ursula. She's not going to beat a sea witch. She goes to do it anyway. She's like, it's time to go do things. That is the climax. That is the hero deciding what to do.
Yes. Okay.
And she goes to go do it, and she goes to try to stop everything, and she's got friends that can go help. We've got Scuttle in the cartoon going to like help, and it happens in the movie too, where it's like the dog goes and bites her, and Scuttle comes and interrupts things, and then the wedding gets interrupted.
Yes.
And it's you can have all of the other people do stuff because this is part of the resolution. It's part of how everything comes out. My decision is we're going to go stop it.
Yes, sure.
She doesn't actually have to be the one to pulls the thing off. She doesn't actually have to be the one that has her hand on the wheel.
I just disagree.
And I just think...
I just am going to disagree with you here.
Yeah. Tell me why.
Because the villain getting slaughtered is big. It may not be the climax in kind of like a literal sense, or it's maybe not technically the climax if you're looking at story structure. But if we're looking at tropes, the hero slays the villain. And if Ariel doesn't slay the villain, then she's not the hero. Maybe not the protagonist. But if we're looking at tropes and what people are seeing, and I think that's a big part of why people have their strong opinions about Disney princesses. Yeah. In the movie, she doesn't do it. In the movie, I liked those two moments because they're happening and they just give her a little bit more agency, because all of those things still happen in the new movie. Scuttle comes in and does XYZ, but Ariel goes and is like, I'm doing this thing and I get to be the one to smash it. It doesn't just fall off of her. Yeah. It doesn't just get tossed in a tumble between, I don't remember who was pulling on it with her.
Scuttle was pulling on it.
Scuttle. Yeah. But and not that that's not okay. And I think you're right, is that the more important decision that happens is earlier, but to give Ariel these moments that we would typically see any other hero in any other genre, would also get to enjoy those moments, would also get to be the person who gets these like really pivotal, like slaying the villain is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And to give that in the movie, it's Eric. In the musical, it is Ariel. They just switched it for the musical.
Yeah.
Because they just wanted it to be Ariel's story.
Yeah.
And they can work together, and it can be, but like I think the final blow, especially for the villain, I think it's a much stronger choice to use the protagonist for that.
Yeah. I guess I don't mind the choice, as I said. It's fine. Those things work.
Sure.
It's maybe I'm like part of my thesis here that I'm creating on the spot is that even those action films are giving short shrift to other things. Like
sure.
you don't maybe we've given short shrift to female heroes and not had them defeat the dragon at the end enough. But maybe we have the male ones, the cliches, happen too much too.
That
because
totally
no one ever does anything alone. And, I understand if it seems convenient, if it's like, well, you're only making the friends important for the female heroes. But I actually think that's actually a really good direction that most complex stories do take, especially today. We never just have the one...
sense.
One thing. I think one example even is in what is it? Wheel of Time. There's an example in Wheel of Time where in the third book, which we don't get to, but there's like this last battle, and it's not the hero Rand who does the kill, it's someone else.
Sure.
And it's like the decisions that the hero makes at the climax, in this case, Ariel being like, we got to go stop it. I now have information and I'm making a decision right now. I could give up because it's a sea witch and I can't do anything about it. And it's too late, but I'm going to go do it. Yeah. The only reason why they're able to succeed is because of that choice. That's what does it.
Yeah, sure.
And there's the really distinctive action. I'm going to go. I can't get there fast because I got human legs, but you all can go. And I'm going to make it there as soon as I can.
Yeah.
And because it's on a boat in the cartoon, it's on a boat.
Water.
She dove into the water.
Very interesting.
She's like, Aya, this is not my wheelhouse anymore, but I'm going to get this.
Well, she forgets for a second, I think.
Yeah, she does. Too. She forgets, I'm sure. But she goes in and she's like, shoot, I can't make it. I'm going to grab this barrel that's floating and I'm going to I don't know how to swim without my fin, so let's just go. And so
Flounder
pulls her along and she's like, I'm going to make it as fast as I can. And that's like such a strong moment that allows these friends and allies that she's made the avenue to make it happen.
Yeah.
And there's like a little bit of a difference too, I think, philosophically, that some people be like, well, the climax is actually the battle with Ursula. And it's not actually, no one has any sort of internal change there. other than Ursula, I suppose, dying. But like no one's internal change happens there. No one's making strong decisions with battling Ursula.
Totally.
All the decisions have been made.
Right.
And she does get to, she's the one that like pulls on Ursula's hair in both of them.
Yeah.
Or I'm not sure she actually pulls Melissa McCarthy's hair, but she like intercedes when when Ursula's gonna like shoot that trident and kill Eric, and it hits the Flotsam and Jessam instead. That's all.
I think she just pushed the trident.
That's all
in the
Ariel.
movie.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think she does too. In the cartoon, she takes her hair and she pulls, and that's what my babies.
Which is great.
She grows huge, and then she's like, "I'm gonna murder you, Ariel."
Yeah.
And it's because of all of these actions that Ariel took. Mm-hmm. Ursula is now big and a big target for that big, masked thing that's going to poke her in the belly. The only reason why Eric can even do the thing is because Ariel did all that.
I guess my thought on that is that at that point, I think the stronger choice is for Ursula to just go after this weak person that Ariel cares about because she just lost who she cared about. She wants to see Ariel suffer, first of all. She wants to kill the loved one just like she just happened. So while she's distracted by trying to get Eric, Ariel comes and saves the day.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, it works in that. That works in other that way too. Yeah,
I'm not.
That's
sure.
how they did it in the movie.
I'm not sure really because all that could have happened, and Ariel still could do the killing blow.
Yeah.
So I'm not. I guess I'm not sure why not let Ariel have it, unless you're trying to say something more complex than that. Unless you're trying to say like, I didn't trust anyone else to help me, or I didn't like, we thought it was going to be me the whole time, but really strength that comes from somewhere else. Like that's like this very specific, this is the villain dying. How the villain dies is important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess like there are other characters in it that have their own,
yes,
their own arcs and their own agency too. We can have Scuttle help, and
Scuttle does help.
He does, in both, and we can have Eric be part of the combat too in some extent. So there are reasons why you might not have that happen. I guess that's my point.
Yes,
there
I'm
are
not sure
legitimate
those
reasons.
Are very strong in the original movie.
Yeah,
strong enough to justify not changing it.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say.
Sure. Yeah.
So in that sense, I think I like the new movie's version better in those moments.
Yeah. So you have to take it off of the boat and make it a little engagement party instead, to allow her to run up to it and make it in time. I guess you could have her swim. I actually like that choice.
I liked that choice.
I like the choice of her swimming to the boat.
But it did slow things down for a second. That was a part of the movie that I was like, so now we're just waiting for her to slowly swim, for Flounder to slowly drag her to that boat far out
we
there.
see the comic relief of Ursula getting her just desserts from all of the
and we do a little bit in the
sea
new
creatures
one.
Come up.
It doesn't need to be that long though.
That's true.
Not that I dislike that part of the movie, but I think the new movie did just fine.
Okay. Yep.
But let's move on to superlatives.
Let's do it.
Okay. So Oscar moment.
Oscar-worthy moment.
I'm going to stick right in this.
Can we do
scene.
it for both?
For what?
Original and the new movie?
We can. Yes, we can.
Or we can just do an honorable mention for the
we'll
the
do
cartoon.
The original. We're talking about the new movie.
Yeah, we'll talk about the new movie. You're right. Okay.
You can mention
sure
that, but specifically in the new movie, in that last scene, I think the actress who plays Vanessa, is that her name? I think it's Vanessa.
Mm-hmm.
Ursula's
Vanessa. Yes. Oh, yes.
Human counterpoint. I was kind of blown away by her.
She acted so hard. Oh, she was scary.
This is some of the best acting in this whole movie. She goes kind of like to the extremes.
Yeah.
Where she is like, she is playing Ursula, playing a human, but gets to have more range and more fun than even Melissa McCarthy gets, because you don't get to see Melissa McCarthy pretend to be like a different person,
right,
and pretend to be all sweet and demure. Like Ursula or Melissa McCarthy doesn't do that.
Right.
That character does, but still like is scary.
She gets to go in when she's like, no,
because in the original, like she's like really nasty.
Yeah.
She's like, get off of me. And I think voiced by Jodie Benson in that scene.
I think so too.
Which I think is amazing.
Yeah. That little song that she sings when she's like, I'm going to have everything.
Does she sing in the,
she sang something.
Remember. Yeah.
Because that's when, but I don't remember what
song.
I don't think it's
Halle. I'm pretty sure it was Halle Bailey's voice.
I'm not sure that they used the same
song.
I don't remember. Someone confirm that for me. Comment. Yeah. Comment on our episode. Yes, she's great. That's a good Oscar-worthy moment. Yes. It really was. She was so good.
And I just think like in a small little moment, I was like, ooh, all the acting just happened. That was good for you. Mm-hmm. I would like just like every emotional switch. I was like, I didn't know that could come out of you. That was great. She killed it.
Yeah.
So was your Oscar moment?
Halle Bailey's reprise number 2. Part of Your World, reprise number 2.
The second one.
I love your world. And she's like, Rawr! She's like,
that's on the 1.
Well, she's like, maybe it's like joined as the same thing, but it's like when she's, because the first one is like when he is passed out, she sings.
The end of it, though. Yes,
because then there's like the whole interlude, and then she sings. Okay, so that's that one.
It is the reprise. Is the first reprise.
First reprise, really great, really excellent.
Vocally,
really, really great.
The best vocally she does.
Yeah,
and she's great the whole time, but that is really powerful. In a way that, Sierra Boggess struggle with a little bit because she's a soprano.
Yeah.
And she does a great job mixing and sounding great, but Halle really shined.
She really did great.
Especially in that reprise. I was
so
like,
exciting.
Ooh, yeah. It did. It made me emotional in the theater. I was like,
oh, it's good. Yeah. Cool.
Plus with the ocean spray behind her.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. So unearned moment. What would you say?
So when you have animation, you can make people's hair look like whatever, whether or not they've been underwater. So
I don't know where this is going.
At the very end of the film, suddenly we've got this like very cheesy like, oh, I know humans helped us. I'm Javier Bardem, and I'm going to say everything is okay, and all the humans and fish are friends despite my wife being dead. And then all of these mer people pop up out of the ocean, but they're like, and they're supposed to be like all very elegant, but they just come up and their hair is just so wet and over their faces. And they all just like look like wet dogs. And I was like, this is very funny because it's just, in the cartoon, you don't really think about it. Like, they come up and they're like perfectly coiffed hair. It's very voluminous when they like come out of the water, and you get to see all these like beautiful heads of hair. And then here you have these people come up and they're just like very, very wet. Look so stupid outside of water. And I just thought that was very funny and put a little damper on the like this moment that's supposed to be like kumbaya. It's supposed to seem poignant. I've problems with it, but I think it just made the moment a little bit undeserved. It was unearned to have these like people come up and just like be all like wet.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I think there was always criticism in the original movie that like they came out of the water and their hair was still perfect.
I know. I love that.
But they're magic, so they could.
They're magical. Right.
I mean, I think they gave Halle Bailey her specific
because
hairstyle
she could.
so it would stay the same.
Yeah. And it does. It looks great.
It does look great.
In and out, yeah.
I'm going to say my unearned moment is the same moment, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
And I think we mentioned it a little bit already, but just that we didn't do any building of mermaid community.
Yeah.
We spend some time prince talking about the importance of cultures coming together. We need to learn about each other's cultures, and come together as people. That seems to be one of the messages. And then we never see any mermaids other than the sisters.
Yeah.
Who, like you said, they don't live there. They just came together for the coral moon, I think is what it was.
And it's like they really do feel more mythological in this new movie, whereas in the cartoon it's like
interesting.
It's a
I
kingdom.
Don't mind.
They're like really gods
But we're looking at I think something about like we see this celebration for this community. That's how it opens.
Yeah, there's so many. There's a big concert hall and they're doing this celebration
and then because it's important, especially to the prince, that we see there's this conflict. Like, no, the mermaids are bad because they lure out, like the ocean's dangerous. Like they
lure us out to shipwrecks and
we can't trust them. We can't do that.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, it's like, no, they poison our waters. They throw garbage in there. They've killed your mother. Like there's conflict between them. So I would have loved there to be some sort of one moment of being like, this is what this looks like. One, we don't get that from the fish because the fish don't really have faces.
Right.
So I'm like, this beautiful dancing. By the way, I noted, I think you went to the bathroom while I was sitting and watching the credits. The dance was all choreographed by the Alvin Ailey Dance Company.
Oh.
Which is incredible.
That's insane.
You know, if you don't know, that's like a very famous dance company.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I think the fish dancing, it was beautiful. When there was like a couple moments I'm like, it is so beautiful, but also I don't see them as, I don't see any of them as human.
There's no personality. Yeah.
Like there's nothing, they're just like beautiful
movements, beautiful shapes.
Yeah. Which is a beautiful spectacle.
Sure.
But not a lot of humanity.
Yeah.
I would love to see some of that world building at the beginning, but then also having some sort of connection, not just like that the mermaids are popping up and everyone else isn't reacting at all.
I know, like they appeared out of nowhere. I was like, why wouldn't all the humans be like, what is happening right now?
Wouldn't that be scary?
That would be horrifying. Yeah.
The rest of the movie, they're like, oh no, they start the movie with like throwing spears into the water at a mermaid. Yeah. Like they're gonna call us to their death. Like they're scared of mermaids. Yeah. And there's no fear, but that's okay if it's like this union is actually the start of intercommunity. If that's a message that you're trying to send, why not have that moment at the end? Do it just a little bit.
Yeah, be a little bit more reticent. Have one of them interact
with, be a little bit smaller. Have it like a couple of them come and interact with people.
Yeah, and they're like, oh my gosh, hi.
Have like just the Queen and King Triton have a moment. It doesn't have to be verbal even.
That just this might be the beginning of a fortuitous relationship instead of just like all the mermaids invaded and they're like suddenly sitting on all the boats
like,
in there.
Everyone's
just like very happy and smiling. I was like,
this was always meant to be.
Yeah,
and
did you forget that you were basically at war? Like, this is really weird.
Yeah, it was a little, I thought for that reason and not just the unmagic hair.
Oh, the unmagic hair
was unearned.
The unmagic hair. Oh my God, it's my favorite. It's just all these wet people just like emerging out of the water. Funny. It's so stupid. Oh, it looks very funny.
More superlatives. Favorite updated costume.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't think about that.
Okay.
I don't know. All of the stuff from the cartoon is so iconic. I don't know. What do you have? Yeah, you give me one. I have to think.
You got so nervous.
I did.
Oh my goodness, caught you off guard.
Yeah, I don't have one.
I mean, I love that they did both the pink dress and the blue dress and the purple dress. Like the very iconic, like her blue dress when they're in the Blue Lagoon. They give her a version of that.
Yeah.
The pink dress, she comes out with it kind of in the beginning of It's like at different times in the movie, but they give us a pink dress, they give us a blue dress, and Vanessa's wearing a purple dress. Iconic.
Yeah.
And I think just like the way, especially that they do, I mean, both the blue dress and the pink dress, like these very lacy, but like light, like this is like clearly a little bit Caribbean inspired.
Yeah, it's very Caribbean. Yeah, it looks like,
still like very
it's for warm weather.
Beautiful. Like they get her back in the blue one for the end, right?
Yeah.
They throw the blue dress back into the ocean. And she comes back out with it when she has legs again. When in the old movie, she like comes out wearing this like long sequin gown.
It's very
like,
90s.
So
very
weird.
80s, 90s, 80s, early
89, right?
Late 80s. Yeah. It's very like, it's like diamonds. It's so weird.
It's very strange.
Yeah.
But I think probably those dresses.
Yeah. That's nice. I think just in general, I liked the costuming of the people. Jodie Benson's in it for like a second.
Jodie Benson.
But
they love doing that. They love throwing.
Yeah. I liked
the OGs
their interpretation and redo of the kind of the town scene, like going through the market, and just like it was very Caribbean, and I liked the look, and I liked
the original was Caribbean inspired, at least a little bit. I mean, Sebastian.
Yep.
Clearly Caribbean.
I mean, both his songs are so Caribbean. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's show it. Like, that's great. I loved it.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting kind of having this mix of cultures, and we're seeing this like influence of other cultures, and we see the disparity between the royals and the in very subtle ways, and we get to feel we get to live in that Caribbean world, and that was nice. Also, I had a favorite line update.
Oh, okay.
Very specifically was there's a moment when Eric is like, I don't know if I should go with her or wait for the girl that I'm waiting that's saying to me. Yeah. And in both cases, I don't remember his name. Grimm, yeah. Grimsby,
I think, yeah.
The like, I don't know,
the butler
royal
or his
advisor, who knows?
Yeah.
Who have the
footman or something.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Unclear.
His man.
In the original movie, he says something like, don't just go chasing a dream when there's a real loving, kind person in front of you. Like very specifically about a person.
Yeah.
I think the sentiment in both is great. I think we talked about this even already, that like this pull between the idealistic or just like what's in front of me. Yeah. I think it's it's appealing. It is universally, what's the word I'm looking for? It is universally understood.
It's universal?
Yeah, it's universal. Sure.
Yeah.
It's a universal idea that many people can
latch onto. They can, they
there's
agree,
words. They can relate.
They can relate
to.
Oh my
gosh.
Yeah.
Relate.
Relatable.
The word is relate.
Universally relatable. Yeah.
Yes. It's universally relatable. In the new movie, he says something like, I don't know much, but don't waste your time. I don't remember what the quote is. I'm making something up, but it's something along the lines of like, don't waste your time thinking about a future that might be, and ignore what is right now. Yeah. It was something like a little bit more simple and a little bit more vague. And I think the way they worded it, I'll look it up. I try to look it up, but it was difficult. Yeah. Because it's so new. It's so new.
Yeah. It is. It was a sweet, I remember it was a very sweet line. I really liked
the way it was worded, I thought was like, I was like, that is excellent advice. Like that is kind of like,
it's like, I
it's
prefer
applicable in a lot of different places.
As opposed to thinking about, things that might be, I prefer to consider what is.
Yeah, something
like that.
really, really sweet, really simple.
Yeah.
And I think that line update, I was like, yes, that's it. And I didn't really, know it was an update until I rewatched the old one, and I was like, it's slightly different, and it's good.
Yeah.
The update is good.
I guess my favorite update would be Scuttle's song, I suppose. The little scuttlebutt.
That Scuttle has a song at all?
Scuttle
has a song in the musical. Not good.
Okay.
Not a good song
Boo.
in the musical.
Okay. Yeah.
I liked that.
I liked the little rap that Lin-Manuel wrote.
It's cute.
For it. It's cute.
It's cute. Very Lin-Manuel.
And having Awkwafina do it is fun. I like Awkwafina. It was
nice.
Yeah.
I liked it. I really did.
Awkwafina's second Disney movie.
That was kind of like that featured Daveed Diggs more because Daveed Diggs
is that kind of
raps.
Yeah, he's that
really well, and they
in that style, and yeah.
Not that he's not a good singer, but he's.
That's what he won the Tony for rapping a lot.
For rap, really done it.
Yeah.
So I think that was nice.
Yeah.
I agree.
Cool. I do want to give a honorary shout out to the cartoon because there's something that I noticed.
Oh yes, you give whatever
that I noticed that I recall now, even thinking about just it was so visceral. The sound design of the cartoon is so good.
Wow.
Hearing Sebastian's little legs clicking on stuff and his baton tapping,
the Foley,
all of the Foley is so good, and how there's bubbles and stuff is crashing on the ground, and oh my God, it's so satisfying hearing him click around all of the little things. I was watching it and I started hearing it, and it would just flash back to my childhood and just finding that so satisfying.
Okay.
The paper unrolling and the little his teeth getting his mouth closed, and oh man, they did a really great job.
Interesting. Now now I want to go back and watch the new one and see if that is.
I didn't note it in the new one at all.
I mean, I didn't note it in either of them, so I don't even know.
Something clicked. I remember finding it very satisfying when I was a kid, and I only remember that now after seeing it again and being like, oh yeah, that's a really good sound effects.
Interesting. I wonder if part of that's nostalgia too.
I'm sure.
That's what you listen to over and over again, and it's.
I just remember that click, 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 click.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so good. It's really good. Yeah. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us for Then a Moment.
Mm-hmm.
I had a great time. I thought that was a good conversation. I hope you thought so too.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for joining us for Then a Moment. I'm Pavi Proczko. And remember, you don't have to explain everything in a story.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to leave some of the backstory for our imagination.
Yes. And I am Colin Funk. And remember to never underestimate the power of body language.
Oh.
Even if people try to tell you that you need to cut that out of your Disney movies.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Then a Moment, a Pavitas production project, hosted by Colin Funk and Pavi Proczko. This podcast is produced by Chicago Podcast Studio. Our opening cartoon was created by Gloriu, and our theme song was composed by me, Pavi Proczko. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite listening platform. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Then a Moment Pod, all one word, for updates on new episodes and behind-the-scenes content. If you have any feedback, comments, concerns, or kudos, you can email us at thenamomentpod@gmail.com. Please rate and review us wherever you can. It would help us out a bunch. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.